Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Talk this morning. We're recording this on Wednesday, which we often do. And today on the church calendar is Ash Wednesday, which is not a big Lakeview thing. It's just not been something that we've been. But there's been different things that we've celebrated around it, and we've done different encouragements throughout the year as well too. But thanks for hanging out with us today. It'll be Thursday for you when you start watching this, so Ash Wednesday will be long gone. But thanks for hanging out with us. We want to just invite you into this space with some coffee and to just hang out and to connect with us, and to do a couple reminders, which is kind of why we meet here on this video time to hang out with you. And so one of our reminders this week is that we are starting, because it's Ash Wednesday, which is 40 days to Palm Sunday. I was going to Good Friday? No, Palm Sunday. We're beginning Seek God for the City. And so we've kind of been looking through the app. Today is the first day of that. Yes. And so a really cool app, or if you have the book, you probably have been making marks or connections, or hopefully it's just kind of encouraged you and led you in a bit of a great prayer time as well too. Mm-hmm. And the things and the people, so praying on behalf of children, and then 5 countries just to be praying for as well too, which I think is excellent, because in the last week and a half we very much kind of turned our eyes to other countries and kind of seeing what's happening there. So what were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say, it's like a shiny new toy.
It is.
I just gotta say, I gotta get that out. I'll confess that it's like I just downloaded it this morning. I'm ready to go. But I noticed there's this cool tools, and maybe this will have to be our topic of discussion for next week. But there's this one article in here, praying to fix or praying to fulfill. Oh. And I think, that would be so anyways, I'm looking forward to getting into that. Mm-hmm. The academic side of things, what does that mean? But maybe for another time.
See, I got the book. I'm old school, so I
understand.
And what does that say about?
I had a conversation about this morning already. I really like books. I much prefer to read a physical book. But here's driving halfway to the office this morning, I went, the book I was going to spend an hour reading this morning, I forgot it at home. Mm-hmm. That happens to me regularly. Mm-hmm. I wanted to read, I wanted to get it, but it's at home. Likewise, I'll be at home. I'm going to read for a while. Yeah. It's at the office. But this is just...
You have it right there.
I have it. So
it's great.
When it comes to devotions or praying, I do tend towards a phone app because it's with me.
Yeah, but that's a cool tool. I might download just to see what that says about...
I would love to actually talk about that more, but actually in some ways I think we've also kind of whet the appetite.
I hope so.
Can you say it again? What was it?
There was an article, so under the cool tools, praying to fix or praying to fulfill.
Okay.
So that's we can maybe tease that out, think about it for next week. But the other reason I love the app, I love those Prayercast videos. I really do. And I like that I'm reading and it's like, let's pray for that. Oh, look, there's a video right here and the link is there. And it's not like, okay, now I'm going to get out a laptop and I'm going to look up the video and try and find it. It's just
right
boom.
There.
Oh. And
so anybody can grab that even now. It started yesterday when you're here reading this, but you can join in anytime.
And if you're a book person, you can go to Prayercast and find all of those videos as well too. So if you have a computer, this is all accessible to you as well.
And if you're watching this, you have all the tools you need. It's like, if you figured out how to watch this, you could watch those. And we know that you are incredibly connected and bright.
What if the carrier pigeon brings you a transcription of this conversation?
Then they're not watching this. They are reading this.
Oh, man.
And so I think
we should move on to the next step.
So that's starting today for us, but it's going to be going for the next 40 days. So we're going to be talking about it a lot. Mm-hmm. So let's get into that and let's see what God has for us and for our community and for our world. And it's a really great thing. The other thing that we're going to just highlight this morning is that it's communion this Sunday.
Absolutely.
And so we invite you to get your elements ready at home. We will have stuff here as well if you're joining us this Sunday. And so we look forward to just remembering. Jeff, I know that you said there was a church that you were part of where they celebrated every week. I think that's actually very cool.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I wasn't. I don't think I attended a church like that, but I've heard about a lot of churches like that. Yeah.
and I never did either. So
Yeah.
this is what we do. But that's kind of our highlight for today.
Yeah.
But what we also wanted to do was connect to some of the stuff that happened this last Sunday as well too. And so Jeff was taking us through this passage in Mark where there was controversy about the Sabbath. And what do you do when you kind of have this rule that you kind of live and even base your life on, and then all of a sudden Jesus comes and he doesn't change it, but he adjusts it and says, well, what about this different perspective on the same thing?
Yeah.
Because Jesus had not abolished the Sabbath. He
Right.
said, I'm Lord of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
And here's how it should happen. And so what we wanted to kind of challenge everybody with this last Sunday coming out of Jeff's sermon was, how have we maybe even been a little bit like those Pharisees that had something that they thought they were absolutely right about, and it got changed a little bit, or they had to change their perspective. And so has there been anything deep or surface that you've kind of been challenged at to say, here's where I maybe had to, and this might sound like a swear word to some people, had to admit that I'm wrong or maybe less right than another person or another thing?
How long do we have?
And we thought, okay, we could start talking about this in terms of marriage.
Prior to
but we'd be
06,
here all day.
prior to 06, I was never wrong.
That's the year I got married, right?
Actually, you know what? Joking aside, this is actually something that she is very, in a healthy way, I want to say that, in a really good way, she knows, because I thank her for this all the time, helps me kind of gain outside perspective on things. And for me, the quintessential funny story about a time I realized I was really wrong, that she helped me with that. It was on our honeymoon, so right off the bat, right? Snowboarding used to be a big thing in Sheena's life. And I surfed, she snowboarded, and we were trying to figure out how do we involve the other in these hobbies and pastimes. And so we were early on trying to get me geared up for snowboarding. And so I just remember on our honeymoon, we go into where we were taking a week in a town called Courtney on the island. We were trying on snowboard helmets. And I'm like, I had a helmet at home that for kayaking, whitewater kayaking, and when I bought it, it had a sticker on it that said small medium. So I assumed that's my head size. So I said to Sheena, I'm like, she's grabbing these larges and extra larges, and I'm looking at her like, this is too big. I'm a small medium. And she's like just, are you that, that look you have where you're like, are you listening to yourself? And she's like, fine, hands me a small medium. I can't get it on, right? I'm like, it's not working. She's like, now try this. And it's the extra large, fit like a glove. It was just perfect. And I went, okay, so I was wrong. And I don't let myself live that down because I just think, we gain those perspectives where we just, we get something, right? Something will trigger a certain way of thinking. And we get locked into that and go, that's the way it is, that's the way it's always going to be, nothing changes, and it's fine and funny when it's something innocent like the size of your noggin, but sometimes it can be other, philosophies or beliefs that can be really devastating to people.
Which we actually saw in that passage, because this was super deep to the point where we need to kill this guy, because this is serious. Like, he is leading people astray. We need to silence him, but people are listening to him and he's got a crowd. We need to be done with him, right? So it's bigger than
it's not a helmet size. It's not.
Okay, Jeff, start us off. How have you seen or admitted?
So many ways. I can't make it as funny as you, but there's a lot of things where my wife made me realize, or I had to realize, you're right, I'm wrong, or we both admitted we were wrong sometimes. But for me, one thing that comes to mind is just prayer is so important, and I've struggled with prayer. I mean, I've struggled with prayer because as many people probably do, for me, I'm a routine guy. So I'll find my time to pray, I'm like, oh, I should pray for longer. But I pray through my list, I'm like, what do I do? And so I've struggled, So over the years, that's a lot more when I was younger. Over the years, I've learned how to pray through the scripture and that kind of stuff. But I think one thing for me, and maybe it's not just as much about admitting I'm wrong, but just growing in it, and so realizing that, I have been wrong about it. I remember reading lots of books about prayer, and a lot of them would say you need to be very specific, you need to be very forceful, you need to be very, very confident, you need to know exactly what you're praying for, you have to keep track. And that really has started to rub me wrong, because I don't see the intent of prayer to force God to do something. Right. I think that what your question will get in, it's funny that you read that, because that's what I was thinking about when But we can get into more of that later. But for me, I've learned to pray quite differently. And I've talked with my wife about this too. And I think when you go through struggle, with her health, we've gone through struggle. We prayed that God would heal her. We know you can. We know you want to. All this kind of stuff, right? Trying to be forceful. And recognizing, even Jesus' prayer was, I'll explain what I want, but submit to your will, right? So now when I pray for people, I don't pray, make sure you heal them. Yeah. We want it healed by this time, and we want it to be like this, or whatever. Whatever those books said. I think they were wrong, because I think prayer is about a relationship with God and a submission of my will to His. So I will tell God what I'd like I would a friend, and then say, but you know best, so I just bring them to you and ask you to give us what we need for what you want us to do, right? And I know that it's very simple, but yet I think that for me, that's where I've had to admit that I've been wrong about prayer, and found it a more truthful way, I think. So how about you?
So thinking about the question in a serious way, I think I was kind of taken back to a particular attitude that I think was more prevalent back in my college days, right? So I won't try and point too many fingers here, except at myself. I was at a Baptist college, and we took that seriously. And so but kind of Pharisaically, in the sense that, here's all X, Y, Z, all the things that made us Baptist, and we equated, I'm especially, and others certainly, we equated that with right. And so we looked at other, even Christian institutions and schools as, they're maybe not Christians. Even though they were reading the same Bible, praying to the, same God, and all of that. And I'm not talking right out there kind of, real main, you would never ever suspect that they weren't Christians, but anyways. And so we kind of had this almost, if you're part of us, then for sure you're God's chosen, you're the good Christians, and but if you're not, then, so it's kind of that real insider outsider kind of thing, and had a very narrow view of what it meant to be Christian, to be saved, to be all of that. And so we passed it off jokingly, right? We joke, they're not real Christians, but I think behind the joke there actually was a little bit of a thought, we actually kind of believe that. How often behind there's that nugget of truth behind every joke, and there was something let's be clear, this took years to actually kind of unpack, just theologically going, wait a minute, and it started in simple ways. I remember years later, our youth group and another youth group in town, we would start to get together for worship nights. Well, what kind of church was it? It was a United Church. And so now I'm this Baptist kid thinking, what, right? I know, but that in myself was going, oh, wait a minute, how is it, certainly God was honored and glorified in those nights of youth from around the city coming together. Oh, but we're in the basement of a United Church, and it was awesome, right? And so that took years. And I think, as I think through it today, where is there like Pharisaical things? So just to be clear, my view has broadened, and I see that that's a way where I was wrong about, unless you're this little thing, you're maybe not safe. But actually, how is there still some Pharisaism in myself today? And part of it is, I think, not realizing that journey for me on that one particular theological issue took years.
Yeah.
And I might come to someone else and go, man, why don't you get it? You know, and not realizing, oh, it took me years.
Yep.
Maybe it will take years in someone else as well. And so if I have an expectation that people will be able to change their thought, get right thinking right there, right away, already betraying a little bit of where I still hold on to that.
The right way.
The right way, the one right way, and do it now. Because I've got it figured out. Oh, I mean, I spent 20 years working on it, but, you know, and so I have to be careful because there's still little lingering bits that I have to be not imposing and not still acting like a Pharisee because, as we are seeing, Jesus had some sharp words for him.
So are you sure you can be a pastor since you're a little bit fair?
I ask that regularly, Jeff.
I'm joking.
He can
just
because
to say,
he has the Baptist, written under his
just to
education.
say that, like,
Just to
I
say.
think there's a bit of Pharisee in all of us, right? Like,
Yeah, totally.
Like that's,
no, I
what you're
totally
kinda getting
understand
at.
what you're saying. And I think actually, better a pastor, maybe this is my self-justification, better a pastor who can admit it than one who can't.
Yes.
And I think we see examples where that's really destructive when we go, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nope, those are Jesus' words.
Yep, it's always
Not the
about
pastors.
him. Yeah.
So mine is a little bit similar, but I'm going to keep it a little bit more surface. That like when I was, I was in camp ministry for a couple of years in my late teens and early 20s, and one of the things that we always did was we would try and throughout the week give an encouragement and a challenge for kids if they wanted to accept Christ to do that. And I think that was a really good thing, and I wouldn't change that. But one of the ways that I was very much challenged was by the scripture, if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, right? And so there was times where in my head I thought that was the only way. You have to pray this prayer. You have to actually say it out loud in order for it to make sense. And there was even one guy who actually went through the kind of the program and was a counselor and everything like that. And he got to the end of it and he's like, I don't know what to do with this because I'm having all these struggles. And we just kind of said, well, you've prayed that prayer, so you're done. Great, move on to the next thing. And when we take a very surface level look at if you pray, using your mouth to acknowledge Christ, we actually get into much deeper water because there's a lot more ways that we can acknowledge Christ with our lives and then completely live differently when it's Jesus who actually was able to, in a giant crowd around him, be able to discern the hearts of the Pharisees, to be able to discern the heart of a tax collector and sinner and know the difference. And to say, I'm actually working on all of you all at the same time, even if you've said it out loud, even if you haven't. And there was a challenge to me in that as well too, because we kind of took that if I confess thing and kind of ran with it, and we almost we were more interested in the numbers of kids that we could say have prayed this prayer at camp, and yet kind of just dropped them after the end of camp, and didn't have a lot of follow-up other than like, oh, just come back to youth group or come back to this, or so there was some follow-up there, but the challenge for me especially was to kind of say, where is God actually working in people's lives where they maybe haven't said it out loud, but I bet he's working on their heart today. And am I going to be surprised by who's in heaven and who's not based on what they've said and my judgment of that? And a lot of that also comes back to my judgment of how I see people confessing or living or something like that, when it's actually it's actually God who's in charge of all that, and he is a good judge, and he is going to make all things right and good in that zone.
Yeah.
And it's not for me to even worry about it all. And so I think that's kind of one thing that challenged me, a couple years ago. But
Yeah. I often think that heaven would be a pretty lonely place if I decided who would be in. Because there's some days it'd be
Yeah.
like occupation 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because even when we get mad at God, I'm like, I'm not sure I want God there. Like all of that. But it's really in his hands.
yeah.
And that's a good thing.
And how is it going to challenge our thinking right now today
Yeah.
to know that some of our enemies, figurative and literal,
Yeah.
might actually be sitting beside
Yeah.
us in heaven too?
Yeah.
That's going to challenge our thinking, and I hope that challenges all of our thinking. And I think that's also what Jesus' point was
Yeah.
in this passage, to say,
Yeah.
you think you've got it all figured out.
Yeah.
It's not about whether you've got it figured out or not. It's about the fact that I am Lord. Fill in the blank, of the Sabbath, of whatever.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep coming back to that question that Mark keeps bringing up. Who do you say I am?
Yeah.
Who do you say I am?
Yeah.
Pharisee, tax collector, sinner, pastor, fill in the blank. Who do you say Jesus is? And so that's our encouragement and our challenge for you this week, that wherever you're at, you have these conversations, but even letting God work on you in a lot of different ways. And as you even take this week to work through, seek God for the city, that there's daily devotions that are going to challenge us and also point us in a really good direction in a lot of these thoughts. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for just being a part of our lives today. And I hope we'll see you Sunday for communion and for a gathering time. And have a great week.